I thought I would share a tutorial on how I made the graduation book that I made for my girlfriend's daughter. So let me bring that in real quick. So this book here has 3 pages, and I thought that I would do a little quick tutorial on how I made this book, how I put it together. So let me bring in the sample page. So here is the base page. This is what each page looks like. So you have on the front of the page, you have a flap that goes up. Then you have a second flap that goes up. Then you have a pocket that has a photo mat and a tag in it. On the inside of the page is a mat. And then on the back side, you have a big flap that goes this way. Then you have a flap that goes up and a flap that goes out. And then another pocket with a photo mat in it. So I thought I would share with you how I made that page. So each page has the base page is the base page itself is 6.5 by 6.5. So you're going to need a piece of paper that is 6.5 by 6.5, and a second one that is 6.5 by 7.5 that you score a 1/2 inch on either end of the 7.5 inch side. And then the insert for the base page is 6.25 by 6. All right. So we're going to start off by folding and scoring by folding our scored lines and burnishing those. And again, today I am using my art glitter glue, but you can use whatever adhesive that you like the most. I just really like art glitter glue a lot. So I'm going to start by gluing down the one flap. Oops. And then I'm going to line that up. And get that down. And then I'm going to go ahead and put the glue on the other flap. And stick that down. Okay. So there is my base page, which is 6.5 by 6.5. And again, you know, I think I've cut my my one page off slightly, because when I did the sample one, it kind of did the same thing. So I'm going to trim it. You can trim it. It's not, you can trim it however you want. It's not a big deal. This is where I'm going to put the pocket for that front page, which will kind of hide if I've done a horrible job trimming it. My opening is over here. I'm going to use the bottom of the page. So I'm going to put that over to the side for just a moment. So the front half of that first page has several different parts. So it has a pocket that is 7.5 by 3. And I'm going to score at a 1/2 inch on all 3 sides. Then you have one flap that is 6.5 by 5.5, and you're going to score at a 1/2 inch on the top. And then the second flap is 6.5 by 7, and you're going to score at a 1/2 inch at the top of that one as well. This page also has a photo mat that is 4.25 by 6.25, and then I made a tag to go into that pocket. And all the tags that I've made are just made out of the scraps from cutting the paper apart in the process of making all these different pieces and parts. So let's first start. We're going to just fold and burnish the 2 flaps and put those aside. And then for the pocket, I am going to miter the two corners and then go ahead and fold and burnish those score lines. I'm going to bring my base page back. Again, I have the opening on the side. This side will be the hinge. This side will be where I put my my mat for the inside. So I'm going to glue the flap to the bottom of the page. Start by lining that up on the bottom. Sticking it down. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue the sides. Okay, so we've got that part done. Looks good. And I'm going to glue first the bigger flap down. So the 6.5 by 7 inch piece that I have scored at a 1/2 inch. I'm going to glue that down. I'm going to flip this over so I can glue it down. I'm going to put this one down first because this is the bottom flap. I'm going to glue that down. Making sure that I line it up with the page. I feel like I'm off just a little bit there. Let me get that on there better. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So I've got that down. Burnish that. And then I'm going to go ahead and glue the second flap, which is the 6.5 by 5.5 that we scored at a 1/2 inch at the top. Okay. Go ahead and glue that one down right on top of that first flap. Now we have that. Now we have that first flap, that second flap, and that pocket. And we have our mat that we cut at 4 1/4 by 6 1/4 that can go into that pocket. And then a tag that can go in as well. Over here to the side, I have the insert that goes inside the pocket, the binding pocket. Okay, so it's got to go in this way, like that. All right. And then on mine, I did put magnets. So here on the sample one, you can see I have a magnet on the first, second, and then also on the pocket to hold all that down. So now the second page has to be glued a little bit in order to make it work right. So let's start with the pieces and parts that I have for it. So for this, I do have a photo mat that I cut out at 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. Then I have 2 flaps that are 4 1/4 and 6 3/4 that I scored at a 1/2 inch on the 6 3/4 side. I have a pocket that is 7 3/8 by 2 1/4 scored at a 1/2 inch on all 3 sides, or on 3 of the sides. And then I have a big flap that is 7 by 6 1/2 inch that is scored at 1/2 inch on the 7 inch side. All right. So to start off, I'm going to go ahead and fold and burnish on the big flap, and we're going to glue that one down first. All right. So in gluing it down, we want to make sure that we're gluing it in the right spot. So I always tend to flip back and forth. So here's my front. So I know that this is the binding side, and I am going to glue my flap to that side. So of course it's going to be upside down because, well, that's life. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and glue that down. And I'm going to make sure that I'm gluing it on the binding side of the back of the page. Okay, so now we have the flap that comes out this way. And so the next two things I have are the two flaps for photo mats, or the two flaps and then the pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and get those ready. I'm going to miter the corners of my pocket and then fold and burnish on those lines. And then on the two flaps, I'm just going to fold and burnish on my score lines. Okay. So the way that this flap works, again, let me bring my page back here. So I have this open. So I have one flap that goes up, one flap that goes out, and a pocket. And in order to make them all work, I do need to glue them down in order. So I've already glued my big flap. So the first thing I'm going to glue down is the top flap of this page. So let's get some glue on that page, on that flap. And I tend to do everything upside down just so that I can see it. Glue that, line that up. And the reason I'm gluing this one down first is so that then this hinge part is underneath the pocket. So I'm going to glue that down first, and then I'm going to glue my pocket down. So I go ahead and glue this pocket to the outside. I'm going to line it up on that line. And this piece is a little bit shorter than the page to allow for this flap to close without getting caught in the pocket. There. I've got that down. So you can see that to bring that up a little bit, you can see there is kind of a gap between the end of the pocket and the flap so that there isn't any trouble with this closing. And then the second flap, we're going to go ahead and glue to the bottom half of the pocket. Get that on there and line it up. Get that stuck down. All right, that's a lot of turning. Okay, so that's those two flaps in the pocket. I have my photo mat, which will fit right in that pocket there. And that flap closes in that flap. And again, I did magnets. I did one on here, one here, and one here to hold all those down. But this flap is not magneted. That one I left open. Okay, so that is the base page. So on the cover of the book, I do have a pocket, so let me bring the book back in. So here on the book itself, I have, the front has a pocket here that I put this little autograph book in, and then the back has two stacked pockets. So let me show you how I did that. So here is the book cover that I made. So the chipboard pieces that you'll need two pieces that are 7 1/4 by 6 3/4, and then the spine piece that is 6 3/4 by 2. For mine, I did a hidden hinge binding with 1/2-inch gussets, and you can look up to see how to do that, or you can use whatever binding system that you like best, but I like this one. So on this front portion of the book, I made a pocket. Let me get that piece out. So here is the piece that I did for the pocket. It is 8 1/2 by 4 5/8. Then I scored on 3 sides at 1/2 inch and 5/8 inch all the way around. And what I'm going to do is I am going to cut out the corners. So I'm going to cut up to the score line for that. So I'm taking that away, leaving that I made that extra score line so that you have a little space in that pocket for that booklet. If you don't want to put the booklet in, you can skip this second score line. So now I'm going to go ahead and fold and burnish on both those score lines. Now those 1/8 inch score lines can be a little bit difficult to fold on, just because they are so tiny. So you do have to be a little bit careful when you're doing those. And if there was a trick I would tell you, I think the easiest is if you fold and burnish or fold the outside line before you fold the inside line. Sometimes makes it easier to make that original. I'm totally fumbling on my words, I'm sorry, but makes it a little bit easier to fold that inside one if you do it that way, but it doesn't always work out for me when I'm trying. I think as crafters we all understand that life can be difficult. Anyway, all right, so as you can see now, gives you a little bit of space in that pocket. I don't know if you can see that or not. So what I am going to do is I'm going to glue just the corner parts down, because I think that makes it easier when you're trying to glue it into the book, to do that part first. And what I have found, especially with this 1/8 inch, if you use your Tim Holtz ruler, it seems to be just the right height to put that in there and use that to get that glued down firmly without an issue. So let's do this one. And again, I just need to make sure that I'm making it squared off. Okay, so now I have that pocket made, so I can bring my cover back in, and I am going to put glue on the 3 little flaps that I made to bind it, or to get it on there. And then I'm going to line it up on the bottom, and I'm going to line it a little, probably closer to the outside of the book then to the hinge, because I want to make sure that the hinge will close without an issue. And again, I'm going to use my my ruler to help me glue this down, where I have something to press on without, you know, pinching the actual pocket itself. So you want to make sure you get that stuck down, but you certainly don't want get a little glue sticking out there. You certainly don't want to smush your pocket. All right. So now I have that on there. So then on the back half, I have stacked pockets. Let me bring those pieces out. So for the back pocket, I have a tag that I made. Then I have the 2 pockets. So the bottom pocket is made out of a piece that is 8 by 3 1/4, scored at a 1/2 inch on 3 sides. And then the top pocket is 8 by 3. And then I marked down at 2 inches from the top to cut out an angle. I'll do that in just a moment. The photo mats, I have 2 photo mats that are 4 1/4 by 6 1/4, and then I have this larger pocket, which I forgot to put the measurements on, or this larger photo mat for the back pocket is 6 1/4 by 6 1/2. Okay. So let's start first with the bottom pocket. I'm gonna start by mitering the corners. I'm going to fold and burnish all 3 sides. And then on the top pocket, like I said, I measured down 2 inches from the top. And then on here, I measured over 1/4 inch and drew a line from my 2 inch mark to that 1/4 inch mark on the bottom. And I am going to cut that out. So I'm gonna do this angle to that 2 inch line. And then I'm gonna go to cut across and cut that piece out. And do the same on this side. Okay, so now I have a piece that looks like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and fold and burnish on my score lines. And that will be the pocket that goes on top. So let's go ahead and get those glued in. So I'm going to start with my bottom pocket. Put glue on the bottom part first. And I'm going to line that up. Again, this piece is shorter than the actual cover, so I'm going to kind of center it on that bottom in hopes that, maybe not. Maybe I'm just a big fat liar. There we go. Get that on there. And I'm going to glue down the sides. Keep looking to make sure that I'm still in frame, but I'm probably not. That. Go ahead and stick that down. And then for this pocket, the part that we angled is going to slide underneath or like into that pocket. And then we will glue down the sides. So let's put our glue on our little flaps. And then we're going to stick that into the pocket. And when you hit that spot where you're at that 2-inch line, the pocket won't slide in there any further, so you'll know that you're in the right spot. I'm going to go ahead and glue that down, so now we have the 2 pockets, and we can put our big mat into the back, and then we have space for the 2 smaller mats in that bottom pocket, and then our tags can go into that bottom pocket as well. And so there you have it. So thank you so much for being here, and I don't know where I put the page. Here it is. All right, so here's the page. So now we've done our cover, and you will make 3 of these pages to go inside this book, and you are set. So thank you so much for being here with me today. If you have any questions, leave them down below, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks. Bye.